All right. We are on the air. I think. I don't know. I'm staring at my thumbnail. Am I on? Hey. There I am. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to this special off-season Birdwatcher podcast. Something I'd like to call BW's State of the Union Address. That's what this is, folks. And I think I'm timing it pretty well as we're ending the 2024 calendar year. And within the past 24 hours, or I guess it broke late last night for you where you are, maybe early this morning, you were asleep. Corbin Burnes has signed his large deal. It is a 6-year deal going at, I believe, $210 million for the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is a team that during this entire courtship of Corbin Burnes for the past couple of months really hasn't been mentioned once. But I'm going to tell you something. You probably have already seen it if you hadn't known it already. That's where like his home is. That's where his off-season home is. That's where his family is. That's where he's comfortable. So Corbin Burnes chose a contract where it made him the most comfortable. Not necessarily that made him the most money. But we'll talk about things. And I just want to address sort of where we're at right now in this offseason, because I feel like I just need to rage. What is going on with this team? Why aren't we signing anybody? Everybody else is going everywhere else? And hey, guess what? It's not that kind of a talk. It's not. No, folks, I'm sorry. I'm going to pull a little okey doke on you, and we're going to talk about how things really aren't as bad as they look, at least not yet. Let me make this first point right off the bat. It's too early to say it's been a bad off season. It's too early. Now, are we behind? Yes. But let's just use a very simple analogy, one that you should understand, which is we're playing a baseball game. The Orioles are playing somebody. We're down 4-2 in the 7th inning. Now, I know some of you fans, after covering all these ball games, that being down a couple of runs in the 7th inning, you're ready to head for the exits. You're convinced the team is doomed. But how often do you feel foolish when the team comes back and eventually wins the game? Look, I'm ready to cast aspersions on Mike Elias and the new ownership with a quote-unquote bad offseason. I'm ready to do that once the offseason is kaput. But it isn't yet. It isn't yet. Okay? So I think first things first, if you're feeling frustrated, it's understandable. But if you go to the the mental health mecca that is Twitter or X or whatever the hell, you would assume that the Orioles are finished and ownership doesn't care and Elias needs to go. And yeah, I get it. I get why you're not happy Burnes didn't get re-signed, but folks, you just have to understand. He wanted to go where he wanted to go. That is the truth. Okay? He was offered more money by teams besides us. He didn't want that. There's also the fact that there was an opt-out option included by the Diamondbacks that other teams were unable to offer. Now, I haven't been able to confirm or deny that whatever the Orioles offer was included in an opt-out clause or not. But the point is, even if the Orioles did offer an opt-out clause, if they offered Burnes the same exact contract, he's taking Arizona because he wants to go to Arizona. And my point is, folks, is that when you're talking about handing out a giant contract that's going 6 years or more, do you want to give it to a player that doesn't really want to play where you are, doesn't really want to be there, would rather be somewhere else? I'm happy for Corbin, and I think where he wound up, the fact that he isn't with us, I think we couldn't ask for a better place for him to go. He's in a separate league. He's actually in the NL West, which the Dodgers seem to have on lockdown. At least Arizona can maybe make it a little bit more competitive in terms of a division race. But it seems like he's going to a team that at best is going to be a wild card team, no matter how good they are, with the Dodgers in that division. So, and you look at their rotation, yeah, it looks great. But again, is it going to challenge the Dodgers in the regular season? We'll see. I don't know. I'm happy for the Diamondbacks in terms of, I shouldn't say happy. I don't know. I tip my cap to the Diamondbacks for being able to land Burnes and for being a nice warm climate place. Look, all these players, they love going. It's getting to this now. Or these, a lot of these free agents that have that so good tag that they can basically just choose where they want to go, and they're making so much money that an extra $5 million here, $10 million there doesn't really concern them. They're just going to go wherever they're feel like going. You can't say there, well, Mike Elias, why didn't you close the deal? It's not like that. Okay? Now look, if you want to sit here and throw tomatoes at Mike Elias, I'll give you a reason to throw tomatoes at Mike Elias. Trading Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers for Rogers last year for the Marlins. Especially when you look at what the Phillies got, what they gave up to get Jesus Luzardo, who is a much more established pitcher from the same team, and they gave up way less, and they play in the same division. I mean, Elias absolutely screwed the pooch with that trade, and other than the addition of Zach Eflin, you look at the deadline moves last year, and other than Zach Eflin, the other players really didn't help the team improve. In fact, some of them made the team a little bit worse. I'd say Eloy Jimenez was a hole in the lineup. Can only DH, doesn't run, doesn't hustle, comes from a team that had a terrible clubhouse atmosphere going on. Like I don't know why you would have expected that to work out. But anyway, I got a lot to go over. But all I'm asking for anybody listening to me right now, whether you're here live, and feel free to post your comments, I'll be getting to them, or if you're watching this later, I'm just going to try to break this all down. Give me a chance to get it all out before you start throwing tomatoes at me, okay? Because first things first, believe me, I'm just as critical as anybody else when I see something that I'm not gelling with, okay? But the fact, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about two things. I don't know which one to go with first. All right, let's start with this first. Let's talk about the 2023 Baltimore Orioles. Okay? I know there's going to be people that are going to just roll their eyes about this comparison, but here we go. The 2023 Baltimore Orioles, we entered that season with our ace being Kyle Gibson. Do you remember that? I do. And he pitched more innings for us than anybody else. So technically, he really was our ace. He made every start. He pitched about 192 innings. He led the team in that regard. And that's what we brought him in to do. In 2024, every other starting pitcher that is currently in our mix right now, or was in our mix last year before we added Eflin, was in the mix in 2023. All right? The problem is two of them are injured. All right, Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells. We've got a pretty good pitching staff other than that ace, which is great. And when we went out and got Corbin Burnes, we knew exactly what we were doing. We were paying for a one-year rental, okay, with the hopes that maybe if he really enjoyed the organization enough, we could churn out a deal in the offseason that wasn't a crazy plus $250 million contract. I could point to the fact that, hey, maybe Corbin Burnes did enjoy the Orioles or to some degree. But how do you think Corbin Burnes... Look, I got so much to say. The fact of the matter is, in 2023, we won 101 games with Kyle Gibson as our frontline starter, okay? And he was basically replaced in the rotation with Corbin Burnes in 2024. and we won 91 games. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is, yes, Corbin had a great season for us, and I would love to have a dependable guy like that pitching every 5 days. But I am not going to sit here and say that Corbin Burnes was the biggest reason for whatever success we had last year. All right? I think what matters more to the success of this team in 2025 is two things, okay? And when it comes to pitching, let me show you this. This is the 2023 Orioles pitching statistics, okay? And there you see Gibson. I've got it arranged by innings pitched, so you can kind of see who was the most involved in whatever. Gibson, Kramer, Bradish, Grayson, Wells, okay? All those guys are still with the team, those top 5 arms. It's just that a couple of them are hurt. But we've also added a couple. We've added Zach Eflin, and we've added, God, what's his name? I was about to say Imanaga. Sagano. Sorry. So what I want to, thank you, Michael. What I want to point out to you is that it's not necessarily the starting pitching. Look, yeah, we need another starting pitching arm. We do. We need it for depth. We need it. But the number one thing that made Corbin Burnes attractive and what makes an ace attractive is that's the guy you give the ball to in game 1 of a playoff series, because you know it's going to be the other team's ace against your ace, and you want to have one of the very best. That is what Corbin Burnes' biggest value was. Yes, during the regular season, he went out there, gave us quality start after quality start. It was great, okay? And he earned his salary for what he did for us. I got no qualms with that. He can't hold base runners with a damn. I'm not going to miss that about him. I'm not going to miss that about him at all. But he gave us a nice year, and we paid for that year. But it's not the be-all, end-all, folks. I'll tell you what the be-all, end-all is. At 2023, when we won 101 games, when we never got swept once, and let me remind you that sweepless streak extended into 2024 through the month of April, through the month of May, halfway through into the month of June. So everything that you're worried about this Orioles team that was just on this beautiful trajectory path upward, we're talking about a 3-month slide. Something happened around the All-Star break. It obviously affected the offense and their plate approach from top to bottom. When we lost Jordan Westberg, there's a direct correlation with wins turning into losses. And when he came back, the team got immediately better again. You have to factor that into play as well. We had a lot of injuries, okay? But let me just point out to you that it's not just the starting rotation in 2023 with Kyle Gibson being at the top of this rotation. It was the fact that we had a shutdown closer in Felix Bautista, and we had an extremely effective, we couldn't believe how effective Yenier Cano coming in the 8th inning. And you guys, you have to understand how vitally important that is for a team to consistently win, or to more to the point, to consistently never get swept, to always be competitive, because you're shortening games. When you got a shutdown guy in the 9th and a shutdown guy in the 8th inning, you're shortening the game. And that's how we won so often, at least in terms of the pitching side of things. Our offense was also more aggressive with our base running, and our plate approach was a lot more consistent. We hit our share of home runs, but we weren't necessarily trying to, like it kind of felt like in the second half of last season. So what I'm saying is, look, we got to go out there and trade for another arm. And look, I want to give you guys some good news, because there's only a couple of names that you've probably been listening to in terms of potential trade options for a top-of-the-line, or at least near ace status starting pitcher, and that is Luis Castillo, who I believe has 3 years left on his about $21 million a year contract with a 4th-year vesting option. I believe that's what's on his deal. for the Mariners. And then you've got Dylan Cease, who's got 1 year remaining. He would be a Corbin Burnes sort of situation, where if you were to go get him, you would hope that you don't have to give up, trade capital that's like Kobe Mayo, Sammy Basayo. Those guys are off the table. But yeah, Michael is already mentioning Pablo. So yeah, Pablo Lopez, folks, that's the good news. We've got another really fine top of the rotation guy, 28 years old. I really like Pablo Lopez. I really like how steady of a guy he is. Minnesota has put him on the trade block. Other teams have already inquired. Let's push hard. And I'm telling you right now, at this stage, with Pablo Lopez having 3 years left on his contract, we would have him under 3 years of team control. I'm willing to part with a guy like Kobe Mayo to get that. I'm willing to do it because we need that. We do need that arm. We do. And I feel like Mayo might be. I mean, if we can't trade Mountcastle, we could trade Mayo, but it's got to be one or the other. I would like to first offer a package with Mountcastle and try to keep Mayo and Bradfield. Like I've got my list of untouchables. I'm sure they're the same as yours. Okay, but if you can't dangle Mountcastle and like maybe a Urias as a couple of guys that can play every day right now, and then toss in like one prospect like a Dylan Beavers to get it over the hump, or maybe McDermott if they want a pitcher. I would prefer not to get rid of Mayo either, Diecast. But again, Pablo Lopez, you're talking about a really stable guy. You're talking about 3 years of team control at $21 million a year, which is a nice price. You know, I know people think, well, ownership, they've got all the money. What are they? What's $21 million versus $24 million? It's easy to say when it's not your money, even though it is really all of our money funneling back to them. But 35 starts? 35 times 5 is what is that? 175. We don't even play 175 games. I think about 32 is the max. Grayrod needs to stay healthy and take the role. We need him. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Here's the deal. We need that. And we need this from a couple of players on the team, all right? We need Grayson Rodriguez to take the next step. This has to be the season. Jackson Holliday has to have a kind of a season the way Colton Cowser, after a cup of coffee 2 years ago, didn't really impress. Next season comes in, makes his mark, becomes an everyday player. This has to be that year for Holliday. All right? But let me just remind you again, 2023 Orioles, our starting second baseman was Adam Frazier, okay? And we basically had Gunnar Henderson with Frazier, Urias, and Mateo, kind of three guys trading two positions there between second and third, right? Or I guess Gunnar was playing third a little bit still at that point before he made shortstop permanent. But yeah, I mean, guys, it's not a terrible situation the team is in right now. It's not. All right. I am happy we did not give the contract the Yankees did for a Max Fried. I think it's a silly contract. Okay. All right. It looks like we got a lot. Maybe I should take a break and start addressing the. First of all, let me ask the rest of the. What do you guys think about Pablo Lopez? I mean, this guy's name is on the market now too. The Twins are dangling him, and this is the point I want to make, folks. When it comes to the Orioles making moves, you have to know that you've got two things you can do. You can tackle the free agent market, or you can make trades. All right? When it comes to free agency, especially in this day and age, where now we're talking about tax breaks depending on the state. We're talking about players who want to play in warm weather or play in a major metropolis where all the cool stuff's going on and you can hobnob with celebrities or whatever. Everybody, those guys are so attracted to New York and L.A. and San Francisco, San Diego. It's we're Baltimore, all right? And we're a mid-market team. We're actually, I mean, by payroll standards, if you're looking at the list, we're a small market team. But we are trying to at least be a solid mid-market team, okay? And when you're talking about free agency, you're in a bidding war with the big market teams. And a lot of times, there's two things that are going to happen. You're either going to overpay or you're just going to lose. Now, the other way you can acquire good talent is through trades. And when you look at how the Orioles have strengthened themselves as an organization, it's been through drafting, developing prospects, and turning those prospects into trade capital. And that, I think, is where we can find the most success. Now, unfortunately for Mike Elias, he hasn't been able to pull off a trade before Burnes finally signed somewhere, because had he done it, I don't think anybody's crying nearly as much about the Corbin Burnes situation. But Elias does need to do this, okay? He needs to pursue a trade, and we know that trades are being pursued, and we know we have we can make a trade. But you guys, you got to be willing to give up like a Mayo. I'm telling you. Not for Castillo, and definitely not for Cease for 1 year, but for like a Pablo Lopez. And maybe they give us back a little something else, because maybe if I'm looking at a simulation thing, maybe Mayo has a little bit more value. I can't imagine it being much more. I think it's a pretty, you can work out a deal. You can work out a deal. Mussina started 36 games in 96. Well, there was a time when your ace would pitch every fifth day, no matter what. Like, they wouldn't, if there were off days, other guys would just get skipped. And Mussina or whoever your ace might be would pitch every fifth day, and that's how they would always get to, like, 36 starts. Yeah. But most teams don't do that anymore. I mean, we could have done that with Corbin Burnes last year, but for the most part, we didn't. I think once, maybe twice, we used an off day to help bump them up a day. We didn't do it every time, though. But, yeah, we got to get a deal done. But, yeah, all I'm saying is 2023, if you look at how successful the team was, what ultimately was our Achilles heel? It was having no idea how to handle the playoffs, okay? And we got lit up by the Rangers in 2023. It felt like the best thing to do was to add an ace, and we did that. And Corbin Burnes came in, and he did exactly what we asked him to do. He pitched game one of the opening playoff series that we were in, and he gave us 8 1/3 innings of one-run ball, and he lost. Now, first of all, with that scenario playing out like it did, that might have been enough for me as Corbin Burnes to be like, you know what? I was thinking about staying, but I could be like living in Arizona too. I mean, I don't know. Like, that's rough, man. That had to have been rough on Burnes. Just saying. But yeah, that is what an ace is really most important for us, which is that's the guy you give the ball to game one, going up against your opponent's best player, because it's just so important to win that first game, set the tone. Obviously, we've seen in the past couple of postseasons how important it is to win the first game. We haven't won any games. We're 0-5. All right? That's where our biggest problem isn't personnel, folks. Yeah, we need to make some additions, okay? And, yeah, Tony's likely playing somewhere else. And Tyler O'Neill isn't Anthony Santander. But he isn't a terrible downgrade either, guys. I don't think he's a terrible downgrade. As long as, and when I say stay healthy, I mean Tyler O'Neill healthy. As long as he can give us like 125, 130 games, a season much like he did last year with the Red Sox, I'm okay with it. I've seen Rock Kubatko already publish his projected lineup, and he's got Tyler O'Neill hitting third against both lefties and righties. I wholeheartedly disagree. I would have him batting cleanup, if not fifth in the order. I wouldn't have him batting third. But, that everyone's got an opinion. But I think when people are talking about, let me mention another thing that frustrated me. Teoscar Hernandez. He signed a 3-year deal to stay with the Dodgers for $66 million. That's $22 million a year. And I don't know how much of that money is deferred, but some of it is. So the Dodgers don't even have to give him all the cash he needs when he's due to get it. They're deferring it, right? Again. But it's like we signed O'Neill for, I believe, what is it, like $17.5 million a year, 3-year deal, option to get out of it after the first year. And I'm thinking to myself, so the difference between an O'Neill and a Teoscar is just $4.5 million. And then I think about Gary Sanchez that we signed for $8.5 million. I'm thinking, well, why couldn't we just get a $4 million backup catcher who maybe, doesn't have a big home run power or whatever, but we don't use him as a DH. He just comes in and gives Adley days off when he needs it, and then that we can allocate that extra $5.5 million to turn a Tyler O'Neill into a Teoscar Hernandez. But the fact is, Teoscar took the $22 million deal from the Dodgers because he wanted to stay with the Dodgers. So we would have had to overspend for him too. And the way the market looks right now, somebody, and I'm guessing it's going to be the Blue Jays, because they keep saying we got to spend money somewhere. We're looking for anybody to come play for us. A lot of guys, and these are the top tier guys who have the luxury of saying, I don't want to go play there. Well, now we're getting into that group of guys, and I think Anthony Santander is the kind of player that just wants to play. And if Toronto says, here's a 5-year deal, he'll go there. Which would be rough to have him in our division like that. But wherever he winds up, I wish him the best. That's definitely clear. All right, so let me talk about what we can do to make a splash, okay? The first thing, like I said, let's make the trade. Let's get an arm. Let's get a Castillo. Let's get a Cease. Let's get a Lopez. Let's get maybe somebody else whose name hasn't really been talked about yet. But maybe you pick up the phone and the other team's willing to listen. Whatever it might be. Nobody had Corbin Burnes on our radar until the day, and what was it, mid-February or whatever, where you just went, oh my God, we just traded for Corbin Burnes. So don't give up hope, okay? We made a huge trade to get a frontline starter last year, and it did not happen until about 7 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks from today. Okay? Can you feel me? Am I talking you guys off the ledge a little bit? Hang in there. Look, we've got issues, all right? But what I'm saying is, when it comes to personnel, I think by and large, we're going to be okay. I'm worried about two major things. Fixing whatever happened to the team's plate approach in the second half last season. I don't know what happened there. I have no idea. But it happened. And we're going to be monitoring that more than anything in spring training and going into the regular season. Like, are we going to look more like that, or are we going to get back to the way we were, which was a damn good offense? Young. Not even reaching their potential yet. There's so many good young players on this team, guys. We haven't seen the best yet from so many of these guys. And our offense, before that skid, was still ranked at or near the top of a lot of offensive categories. Is Rubenstein not wanting to spend money? Is it Elias not knowing how to convince players? Or does no one really want to play for Baltimore? Okay, so in terms of Rubenstein, it's like, all right, brand new owner. Hey, don't you want to make a splash? Why don't you offer Max Fried 8 years for $200 million or whatever it is? Because he and the people around him are probably saying, hey, that's a really long deal, and most times you're going to wind up paying off a bad contract without getting anything in return. You might get a few good years out of this deal, but there's a better than 50-50 chance that at some point in the back half of this deal, you're going to be regretting that you did this. And, you know. But let me tell you how we can make a splash. There's still a way to make a splash. And I'm talking about improving the bullpen. And I'm talking about going out there and getting the best bullpen arm that is still on the market. And yes, he is a closer, quote unquote. And Felix Bautista is coming back as our closer, quote unquote. But I don't care. We give him the right money, he'll take it. And we will have the 1-2 punch that Cano and Bautista gave us in 2023, and can also be insurance in case Bautista returns and isn't the same Bautista. We have to take that into consideration. We don't know. We're hoping, but we don't know. What we do know is that Yennier Cano lost whatever it is magic he had in 23, and it's a lot more difficult to regain, to get magic, lose it, and then try to regain it as a bullpen pitcher. It ain't easy, guys. You know, he was a nice surprise when he found his stuff, but you know what? If you find it and then you lose it, and then trying to find it, it's to get back to that 2023 Yennier Cano with that 2.11 ERA, where he was virtually unhittable for like the first 4 months or so. You can't depend on that from Cano. So I say you go out there, and if you want to make a splash, if the ownership wants to show the fan base that they are willing to spend and perhaps even overspend, or maybe call it a luxury spend because we're going after an arm that's sort of a ninth inning guy, but we want a couple of ninth inning guys. We go after Tanner Scott. Pay for Tanner Scott. And the thing is, with a guy like that, you're not going to have to make a deal more than 4 years, for sure. 3 years or 4 years, no more than that. And I mean, that's across the board. No team's going to give more than that. You don't have to lock in a starting pitcher 6-year, 7-year, 8-year deal. 3 or 4. And yes, the cost is a premium. But I would argue that ownership should think about the fact that it's so important. Again, when you look at 2023 and the way we won, if you've got a combination of two shutdown guys like Cano and Bautista were in 23, which we did not have last year. Folks, do you remember Craig Kimbrell? Do you remember Sir Anthony Dominguez? Do you remember all of that? We need that stability back, and not just stability, but I'm saying let's dominate. Let's dominate. If we can't win in the starting pitching market, there's still the best relief pitching arm out there. His name is Tanner Scott. Pay that guy. Bring him in. That's the big move. Tony can walk. Burnes can walk. O'Neill might not be Tony, but I got a hunch. Look, Tony hit us over 40 home runs last year, okay? His previous high was 33. Don't be shocked if Tony never hits 40 home runs again. Don't be shocked if he reverts back to a guy that hits you about 33, 35. O'Neill's offering you 31, 32. And not to mention he's younger, a little more agile out there, even though he's jacked. I think he can cover a little bit more ground out in the field than Tony can. And, yeah, he's the right-handed bat that when you look at his splits against left-handed pitching, he utterly destroys lefties. In fact, I believe his OPS plus was second only to Aaron Judge in all of Major League Baseball against left-handed pitching last year. The second best hitter in baseball against lefties last year. We've got that in our lineup right now. And considering how lefty-heavy we were, and we were just looking for that power righty bat to help balance things out, well, there he is. That's the guy. Now, I know it's not sexy, but I don't think it's a bad signing. I think Gary Sanchez was kind of a unnecessary spend. I think we could have gotten a catcher that didn't give you the power potential, but I am warming up to the idea that if they're planning on using him against lefties to DH, or maybe to catch and let Adley DH, that way Adley can be in the lineup more often, that's fine. But number one, none of that really matters unless Adley can get back to being Adley. If Adley can't get back to being Adley, again, these are the more important issues, folks. If you knew Adley Rutschman can get back to being the Adley Rutschman we know and love, wouldn't that take some of the sting away from not getting Burnes back right now? I mean, God, these are the things I want, okay? Here's another thing, by the way, for the ownership. I know I'm jumping all over the place. You need to feed some red meat to the fan base. You do. Look, I'm not saying make a rush bad trade, but there is something you can do right now in terms of Rubenstein and the ownership. There is something they can do right now to let the fans know that they are here to build a winning team, and that is to lock up one of our young stud players. Right now, I think we can agree that Gunnar Henderson would be the number one priority in that regard. Lock him up. Pay out his arbitration years, add on one or two, what would be free agent years, and get that contract locked in. Let the fans know. That's something you can do right now. You don't need to negotiate with anybody but Gunnar's agent in-house. And the thing is with Gunnar, Scott Boras is the agent. Ugh. I don't know. Lock up Westberg if you can. Lock somebody up. All right? Spend some cash. But I'm not saying spend cash just to spend cash and wind up bringing in a player that doesn't fit for us. But there's nothing wrong with spending cash if you're going to lock up a good player like a Jordan Westberg. Gunnar might be a little more difficult. I don't know. But you hear what I'm saying, folks? First of all, let me just stop right now and just ask the chat. I'm paying attention to chat now because I've had to really zone in and try to touch all the points I want to make. And I think I think I'm only about half done. But let me take a break and address what chat is saying here. Sorry, I'm going to take off my glasses. Tyler needs to stay healthy. If he does, he got a great hitter. Yeah, again, he looks like, the only other replacement for Anthony Santander that made sense in the outfield, right-handed power bat that'll give you something close to Tony production. The only other player that fit that bill was Teoscar Hernandez. And again, you just knew that he was never coming here. He always wanted to stay with the Dodgers. It's no shock he re-signed there. I'm sure he was entertaining offers of more money to see if that would tip the balance for him, but it didn't. In the end, it didn't. Actually, the guy that I wanted to look at, and folks, again, if you want to make a splash, we could still sign this guy, Jurickson Profar, okay? I thought Jurickson Profar was the better Santander replacement. I didn't think we had to necessarily replace Tony's 40-plus home runs with another guy that is just known for jacking the ball out of the park. Profar is an on-base guy. And with the way our offense was going last year, especially in that meat of the order, give me a guy that's going to give you a good on base. And Profar gave a 380 on base. I believe Tony's on base last year was like 306. Okay? And I think Tyler O'Neill's better than that. I think he's somewhere around the 325, 330 range. So O'Neill is a little bit of an upgrade in terms of getting on base from Tony. But it's not significant. Profar would have been significant. And when you look at how many home runs we were hitting and the fact that we're moving the left field wall in, I don't feel like we need to go out there and shop for more power. I think we've got plenty of power. I want guys to get on base. I want guys that know how to move guys over. And then when the power bats come up, they hit the Earl Weaver 3 home run special. That's what we need, okay? We don't need don't get into this Yankee mentality where 1 through 9, everybody in the order has got to have 35 homers, 100 RBI. Like that's their own pipe dream. You build a nice balanced lineup, okay, people? All right. What else is being said here? Do you think Rutschman will come back to his old play, or is he stuck in the uppercut swing? Well, you would hope he's not stuck. But I tell you right now, I think when we get into spring training, other than monitoring Felix Bautista's progress, he is unless there's a setback, he's expected to be ready on opening day. Although with the caveat that early on in the season, they're probably not going to turn to him in back-to-back days in save situations, which is, again, another reason why I am willing to overspend, if in one spot, on a elite bullpen arm. Let's help Batista, ease his way back in. Let's have a guy like Tanner Scott that can go out there and close. Bautista one night, Scott the next. Maybe you got a team where in the ninth inning it's all right-handers, and you're like, well, I want Bautista. And then the next night it's three lefties due up, and you're like, well, then we're going to go to Scott. I love that. The only thing that would prevent that is Tanner Scott going, well, I don't want to come into a situation like that. I want to be the guy and the only guy. You just got to talk him into it. You got to talk him into the idea. Because, first of all, the only statistic that really helps in terms of your value, if you're worried about, well, if I don't get as, it's just the save number. Tanner Scott is still putting up elite numbers besides just the save total. It's the ERA, it's the WHIP, it's the K per nine. It's all those other statistics. Those statistics don't change just because there's not an S next to your name 40 times a year. You can go out there and get 22 saves. Bautista gets 23 saves. We good. If we're alternating guys like that and using them in the best situations possible. That is my number one way of turning this offseason around, okay? Two things. Well, maybe number one is the trade, but all right. So we got a 1A and you got a 1B. 1A, make a trade for a starter. There's three big names out there that I would be happy with if we made a trade for them, assuming that we don't give away something ridiculous. And two, go out there and get what is still like the best arm in relief since the free agent market opened, which is Scott. We're looking at all these other positions, especially pitching, some positions as well, but relief pitching, the number one dude is still out there. He could be ours. And we can bring him home. This is where he started. Maybe good years from Sir Anthony Dominguez and Soto. Well, I don't know, and I don't want to depend on it, Michael. I really don't. That's the thing. We've lost Danny Coulombe. All right, so that was our highest leverage lefty reliever in our bullpen. He's gone. We can't just say, oh, Keegan Aiken is that guy now, or no, Cionel Perez is that guy now, and we definitely can't say Gregory Soto is that guy now until he can prove that he's got any kind of control and you can depend on him. Hey there, PAS, how you doing? It's not a shame Corbin is gone. Rod, did you just join us? You're going to have to watch the first 45 minutes of this in order for me to explain why it's not a shame. It's not a shame. And, oh, you did. You still think it's a shame. I think you had to have known that this was ultimately going to be the result, guys, that Corbin wasn't going to re-sign with us. And you also have to not forget what your mindset was when we made that trade for him with the Brewers. 1 year of Corbin Burnes for Joey Ortiz, DL Hall, and one of those compensation draft picks. I think it was a fair trade. I think both parties benefited. And again, Corbin Burnes. Corbin Burnes is the only way you can be successful, and without him, you can't be successful. Well, let's look at this. Corbin Burnes, his last year with the Brewers, he then gets traded to us. Guess what the Brewers did the year Burnes walked last year? They got better. They improved, and they won their division. How'd that work? All right. And again, for us, our ace in 2023 was Kyle Gibson. We won 101 games. We basically replaced Gibson with Burnes, and we won 91 games. Now, I'm not blaming Burnes for not for 10 less wins. What I'm saying is that his presence isn't what dictates a team from being, a 90-win team versus a 100-win team. Not necessarily. Not if you've got your offense, clicking. And the other guys are doing, look, Dean Kramer, he had a 13-5 record that year, but the ERA was over 4. Grayson's ERA was over 4. It's not like we had this crazy stud pitching staff that led us to 101 wins. What really did it for us, I believe in my heart, was that back end of the bullpen. With ERAs like this, it's like, all right, you're going to go 5 to 6 innings and you're going to give up 3 runs. But our offense is good enough where we're going to score 4 or more. And then by the time we get to the 8th inning, it's lights out because we're going to have Cano and Bautista and you're finished and we win. And that's how it worked. You feel me, people? We need to address the bullpen. Nobody's talking about the bullpen. What are we doing here? Do you think that Bradish and Wells could be ahead in their rehab? Could be a actor in the lack of move. Oh, a factor. I have not heard anything about like a step up in their recovery. I think they're still on the same trajectory, which is post All-Star break 2025. And, guys, I think we've learned our lesson when it comes to injuries like this. Like, you just got to plan to be without them and then enjoy the gift that falls in your lap when they are indeed healthy and pitching for you. It's not going to be a case of Bradish returns finally, and it's like, oh, no, how do we fit him into the rotation? We'll be fine. We'll cross that bridge. That's a bridge we can cross. It didn't need to be Burnes necessarily, but we needed an ace, and Elias didn't sign one. Well, how many aces were there, Chilo? How many aces? Again, is Max Fried an ace for you? Are you really thinking that was a good contract? Did you want Blake Snell? Did you really want Blake Snell? I honestly think some of the better arms out there are the ones that are on the trade market. Because they've got their salary set. And if you get a guy like Cease and he's got 1 year left, it's like a prove-it deal. Guys, prove-it deals are nice. All right? You trust Cano to bounce back, Nicholas? Because the thing is, the only real outlier in Cano's career was his wildly successful 2023 season. Before that, he was a guy barely clinging to like a 40-man roster spot. He was a throw-in with that trade from the Twins to begin with. He exceeded expectations. He really did, which is great when that happens. But we don't know if he just had a magical year, and that's not the Cano you're going to ever see again. We don't know. We don't know. I feel like it's more likely that last year's Cano is the real Cano. Or at least, let's say he pitches 5 years. Maybe he's got another 2023 like Cano year in there, but those other 4 years are going to be like last year. That wouldn't surprise me, okay? Because, again, that 2023 came out of nowhere. It really did. Let me scroll back up and see what I've missed here. Going for Cease would be giving up some prospects for 1 year rental, and then he leaves like Burnes, most likely. Not a huge fan for doing that again. But, I mean, do you really miss DL Hall, Chilo? And as far as losing the compensation pick, hey, folks, guess what? Burnes just signed with the Diamondbacks. We just got like the 33rd pick in the next draft. Like that. That just fell in our lap because he signed there. And if Tony winds up signing somewhere else, we've got another pick. Boom. Right there. Folks, there's more than one side to look at this Rubik's Cube, this Hellraiser box, whatever you're looking at here. Look, again, when all is wrapped up, if we break from training camp and we haven't added an arm to both the rotation and a impact arm in the bullpen, I'm going to be let down, and I'm going to start criticizing. But again, let me make this point a second time. It just feels like the Orioles, with the way we're built, we have a better chance of success and just better business practice to develop, to have great drafts, develop prospects, and use them as trade capital to go out there and get whatever need it is that we require. That is such a more cost-effective and less risky way of running an organization that can't afford to, say, hand $250 million to Corbin Burnes only for his arm to get, thrown out in year 2 of that deal. We're not a team that, even with new ownership, and I don't really, it's hard to say because I don't know how deep they're willing to spend. But it's just something you don't want to. It's risky, guys. It's risky. It can absolutely cripple an organization like ours for years to give a Max Fried-like contract, and it doesn't pan out. Isn't winning with a 4.70 ERA just mean you have offense? Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Look, what I'm saying is, Gibson was an innings eater, all right? He had the worst ERA of any of our starters. That is true. But he also pitched more than anybody else. He ate the innings. And he got a lot of those games to a part of the bullpen where Cano and Felix came in and shut the door. And that's why he's got himself a nice 15-9 record to go with that 4.73 ERA. And look, I know if you flopped out Gibson with Burnes, those numbers would all look much better. Does that mean in 2023 we would have won 106 games instead of 101? I don't know. It's pretty hard to win over 101 games. I don't care. Even if you're the Dodgers, it's not easy. The problem is I don't think the offense is getting better. Maybe you start to see some major improvement from the rookies, but with the offense I'm up to last year. Okay, again, Nicholas, let's be real. We're talking about a 3-month pattern that showed signs of improvement as soon as Jordan Westburg got back. We went 7-3 in the final 10 games when Westburg was back in the lineup. All right? I look, it was a major problem, and it has to be addressed. It has to be fixed, and I'm saying it right now. If that issue doesn't get fixed, then no acquisition in the offseason is going to make us win a damn thing. We do have to fix that. We've got new hitting coaches. We got a new bench coach. That clubhouse atmosphere, you started to see some tension. I think we have a good camaraderie amongst the players. I don't think there's any in-house fighting, but there's definitely a morale issue going on with the team. Something happened. Something happened to that morale. Something happened to that swagger and that confidence. And they started to press. I don't know what it is. I don't know if an off season might just be enough where they can start fresh but again, how do you prevent that from happening again? You don't want to see that happen again. If it's happened before, it could happen again, right? We got to address that. Is Mike Trout from Baltimore or a different East Coast city? Where is Trout from, folks? Somebody remind me. Would I agree that Povich would give the Birds 10-plus wins? It depends. I mean, if we do sign another arm, I think Povich probably doesn't make the rotation out of spring training. But, again, so in a 5-man rotation with the volatility with injuries amongst pitching in this day and age, you would expect in a 5-man rotation one of those guys to get banged up, if not seriously injured for the rest of the year. And then, Povich is – I would assume Povich is going to be pitching and making starts next year. It's going to depend on some factors, though, as to how much that'll be. You know, maybe he comes in and his lights out. You know, again, if Grayson can develop, if Povich can find something, you never know, guys. Like the ace you're looking for could be right under our nose. Now, I'm not, but the thing is, I want to just let you know that I don't want to rely on that. That's the whole point. You want that to be the nice surprise. You still need to go out there and get yourself another good starter and, like, you know, as close to an ace as you can get at this point. But in terms of not re-signing Corbin Burnes, I think the Twitterverse, which, shocker, everybody's ready to grab the pitchforks and the torches. Mike Elias again stayed cheap. Well, then I guess the Blue Jays were cheap too, and I guess the Red Sox were cheap too, and I guess the Giants were cheap too. Burnes got offered more money to play other places. He didn't take it. He wanted to be comfortable. You can't blame Mike Elias for that. You just can't. Again, if you feel like I'm a Mike Elias fanboy, like this guy writes, I'll tell you right now, his maneuvers at the trade deadline last July were dreadful. It was bad. It was the worst set of moves he's made since he's become the GM, period. I got no problem calling him out on that. It was bad. Eflin, nice. Everything else, bad. Okay? We gave up Norby and Stowers. It still sticks in my crawl that the Phillies went out and landed Luzardo from the same team, and they gave up less. I mean, these guys they gave up like raw prospects. We gave up two guys that were ready to be in the starting lineup from the jump. Yeah, we still have Eflin this year. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I thought it was a good trade. That it's 2 years worth of Eflin. Yeah, so let's take a look at some of these. Really, and who knew that Twitter could be so negative? Eflin's not an ace. He doesn't really. What's Eflin's most innings pitched in a season? I don't think he's topped 180 before. Yeah, 177. That was his best year. That was that 16-win season with Tampa. 3.01 ERA. I mean, that was by far his best career, best season. But yeah, I mean, he just doesn't have the history of. He's only qualified for like certain statistics in about 3 of the last 8 years. He's not really known as a guy that is going to log a ton of innings for you. We got some good starts out of him down the stretch. We did. But he still wound up with an ERA just under 4 for us, which is right at his career average. You know, I mean, Eflin is fine for a middle-of-the-rotation arm. I got no problem with Eflin on the team. None. But right now, we're looking at opening day, and you probably have to give Eflin the ball for opening day. And to me, that's telling the fans that, like, we did fail out. Just give me a pitcher we're handing the ball to opening day that feels better than Eflin, okay? If it's Cease, I'll take it. Castillo, I'll take it. Lopez, I really like. I'm very happy that Pablo Lopez's name is now out there on the trade block. All right. All right, guys, this is the time to let's have like a speed round. Like, I'm so sorry I haven't been addressing these things as we go. I'm trying to look for the longer ones because that means you really put in some effort. Profar would be good, but I'm more worried about our starter rotation. The good aces are already gone from the market. Yeah. I think as long as you don't leave guys straight on base, guys are good. We need to bring them home. Okay, got the uppercut swing one. Gunnar won't want to stay. If we don't have a good starting rotation, he'll want to go somewhere Well, we've got years before he's allowed to go anywhere, Chilo. So we've got plenty of time to make Gunnar happy to want to stay. Okay. But yeah, I guess if you're talking about, again, it seems with Scott Boras as his agent, the idea of locking him up long term, like pre-arbitration years, like buy that out, like it might not be easy with Scott Boras. But again, I'm talking about, we do need to lock up some players, but in terms of giving the fan base something to rebuild their trust, because right now a lot of fans are losing their minds, I think a little bit prematurely. I'm not saying you don't have a reason to eventually, but it's still the off season, okay? And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I'm trying to talk some of you guys off the ledge, okay? Like, hang in there. You might wind up being right. You might wind up being 100% right, and our off season was garbage. But I firmly believe Tyler O'Neill isn't a bad signing. I firmly believe that. I think Gary Sanchez was a bit of an overpay for something we didn't necessarily need. If that somehow turned Tyler O'Neill into a Teoscar Hernandez, that would have been great. But again, the more I think about it, I don't think we've ever would have gotten Teoscar. We could have thought about re-signing Tony. But, yeah. I get the frustration, guys. I do, but I just think I think it's a little bit overboard. I mean, look at this. And guys, really, if you want to talk about things that concern me, here's my concern. We're a playoff team again next year, and we get swept in whatever first round we play again. That's my problem. My eyes are on Brandon Hyde as much as Mike Elias. Okay? I've said this many times during games or on other podcasts, but I give Brandon Hyde a lot of credit over the last few years for being the leader of this young core of players and building a really good clubhouse chemistry and being responsible for the last 2 seasons of averaging 96 wins per season. Folks, we haven't had a manager like that in a while, and I don't know if, right? Am I right? I think I'm right, right? Right. But the fact of the matter is, he seems like the playoffs are it's another level that I don't know if he can handle. I don't know. We're 0-5 under Brandon Hyde in October. It's not good. Okay? We couldn't, and all but one of those games were at home. Okay? And this most recent one, we scored 1 run between the 2 games. Okay? Those are the things you got to fix. Burnes did his job, and we still lost. So if we go out and get Roki Sasaki, it's not going to matter if we don't fix that problem, right? By the way, I think Sugano, I haven't even talked about Sugano. I think that was a really good signing as well. In terms of the risk-reward situation. You're talking about a 1-year deal. What is it, $13 million? Chump change for what this guy could potentially give you. It's all about, look, if his success in the Nippon Japanese League is, if we get 80% of that, and he's coming off a year with a 1.74 ERA. All right, this dude knows how to pitch, all right? He doesn't throw with the velocity he used to, but he knows how to pitch. That's why he's rocking a sub-2 ERA at 34 years old. And I want a guy that knows how to pitch, not necessarily just knows how to throw hard. Okay, people? Those you got. I don't know why people don't. It's like Shota Imanaga. And last year, you got Sasaki that everybody wants, and then Sugano that nobody talked about. Last year was the same thing with Yamamoto and Imanaga. Everybody wanted Yamamoto. Oh, the second coming of Yamamoto. the Cubs go out there to get Imanaga. Imanaga put up stats better than Yamamoto. Imanaga was great. The only reason people didn't talk about him is, oh, well, he's in his 30s already. Oh, he doesn't throw 100 miles an hour. Well, guess what? You don't have to. All right? We're bringing over a guy who is a very decorated pitcher in Japan. Very, very decorated. And, I'll say this too. Like, just culturally, you're going to get the best he can give you. This guy's not going to come over here after being like a Hall of Fame, and he will be in the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame. He will be. So a guy who's bound for the Japanese Hall of Fame, and I'm talking culturally, is not going to come out over here and like phone it in, or like do like a gimmicky 1-year deal just to get a little experience. No, he's going to come over here and try to pitch his very best. He's going to give you his best, okay? 30 and 35 is way different. What was I saying that made you say that, Peyton? Are you talking about Burnes versus Sagano? First of all, everybody's talking about getting Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi is less than 1 year younger than Sagano. Do you guys know that? And you guys wanted to give Eovaldi like 3 years. So he would have been pitching until he was like 38. Oh, Imanaga. Yeah, but they also brought over Imanaga, Peyton, on a much larger deal. Yeah. So we'll even out the fact that 30 and 35 aren't the same with the fact that the 35-year-old is on a 1-year deal, okay? And the 30-year-old is on a deal that's probably carrying him until he's 35. All right? It's it's not a 35 with a multi-year contract. It's 1 year. And it could be really, really special. I think you guys need to be a little more optimistic about what Sagano can do for this rotation. I am. I really am. I'm guys, listen. I got my concerns. I do. But I think Tyler O'Neill and Sagano are solid ads. I think Sanchez, we'll see. I see what they're trying to do with it. But I just think with Basayo waiting in the wings, possibly coming up later in 2025, I just feel like you could have gone out there, just spent a couple of million on a backup catcher that gives you good defense. Don't worry about the bat so much. But that's just me, He's definitely a stopgap and potentially a great one at that, but you also need the future. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the other thing about not signing Corbin Burnes. If you're the ownership, look, this is the first true off-season free agent market test for new ownership, right? That doesn't necessarily mean, oh, we got to go out there and pay for the biggest contract that isn't Juan Soto on the market, which was Corbin Burnes. Maybe a Dylan Cease for a year. You trade a couple of prospects like a Dylan Beavers and something else, guys that aren't, in your top 5, 6, not Bradfield, not Honeycutt, not Mayo, not Kerstad, not Basayo, not even McDermott, like Judd Fabian or what, throw some guys in like there to get Cease. And then you hit next winter and maybe the market presents you just a better option than the options that were out there this year. Because it really, if you watch these pundits and people breaking down these free agent moves, MLB Network or wherever, they're all pretty much a universal agreement that the pitching market this year is astronomical. Like, these are pretty big contracts, But again, I'm trying to look at it from every perspective. I know ownership, for the most part, unless you're a dude from the Mets, at some point you got to say, well, this is how much we can afford to invest in this or that. And after that, you got to be like, well, plan B. I just want contact from the bats. The strikeouts were off the chart those last 3 months, especially in scoring position. Yeah, I know, George. It's true. We got Cody Ashley now as like the head batting coach, who got promoted from Norfolk. And obviously Norfolk, when all the prospects were playing together down there, I mean, they were just raking. Do you remember when we would just sit back and look at some of these Norfolk box scores? Just ridiculous, you know? So if there's some sort of chemistry between him and these players that have come up here and now are starting to kind of, you know, like Cowser. Cowser's a great example. I mean, God, the strikeouts really went up with Cowser down the stretch. That's another huge concern for me. Is Colton Cowser going to have a little better plate discipline than he was showing there in the second half last season? I mean, that took it down. So many things went south at the same time. But that, I don't think it takes away from the talent that we have here. It's about getting the best out of the talent we have. I think the talent is here. I really do. I do. I mean, just you look at the average age, you look at the fact that a lot of these guys have not reached their fullest potential and are already, you know, contributing to a lineup that is among the better lineups until, again, the second half last year. First half last year, we were right at the top. Right at the top. All of the year before. Right up there. This offense is good. Okay? And again, nobody has peaked yet. We just got to hope Adley can figure out what went wrong. Gunner's going to be okay. Westberg's going to be okay. Holiday, I think he can only get better. I'm not saying Holiday's going to immediately have like a Gunner cup of coffee year into Gunner rookie of the year kind of year. You know how that went for Gunner? He had the cup of coffee, and then, you know, it wasn't, you know, earth-shattering. But then it was that next year where he really took off. We're hoping that happens with Holiday. And if it does, my goodness. You want more production? There you go. I mean, it's we have it. It's in there, guys. It really is. I'm more worried about building a lineup that makes sense with the guys that we have. You know, like Rutschman, for example, if he can't figure it out in spring training, you got to pull Adley aside and go, dude, we love your bat, man, but until you figure it out, you're going to be hitting like 7th in the lineup, okay? You're not going to be batting number 2. Because right now you're hitting like number 2. You're going to be batting 7th until you figure it out, all right, bud? Like, he's going to have to take that medicine if he can't figure it out, and Brandon Hyde's got to be strong enough to be able to tell Adley that's the deal. But, yeah, I think Brandon Hyde needs to be a little more, he's got to tinker a little bit more with the lineup next year as well. You know? Losing a switch hitter hurts, like Tony, because that gives you a lot more flexibility with the lefty-righty matchups and building lineups where you're not overstacking lefties or righties. You can always get that switch hitter in there and be sure that you're not, you know, top heavy with one side of the plate. A better year from Mountie Mullins. I think Mountcastle's definitely. Assuming that he stays with us and he's not part of a trade package, I think Mountcastle has a lot of motivation to put up a monster year. Motivation 1 being that the left field wall has been brought back in, and when you look at home runs that were lost due to the wall, nobody lost more home runs on our team than Mountcastle. And then you look at the fact that Kobe Mayo is the kid on the rise, and if we sort of project the path of Kobe Mayo, it seems like he's eventually Mountcastle's replacement, right? Mayo might put up a hot spring or whatever. Mountcastle has reasons to give it its best. So I'm looking for a nice year for him. Mullins, it's his last year before free agency. He might be another trade piece eventually, you know, because I do think Colton Cowser can handle center field, and then at least as a bridge to a guy like Bradfield Jr. So if we wind up letting Mullins go in a trade that makes sense, I understand it, and I'll say thanks for your time and your service, Ced. You've made some of the best catches I've ever seen. Love Ced Mullins. But that's the nature of the business, guys. Yeah, we're gonna have Mateo be coming back. Give us a little something there in the infield, a change of pace for Holiday, maybe against lefties, pinch runner extraordinaire, and maybe even play a little bit of center field. Ramon, for how much I begrudge him being on this team, was surprisingly productive when the team was struggling. Yeah, I think Ramon Urias in August, he had like 5 home runs. His OPS was like at 1,000. Mullins was doing pretty well when the team was struggling as well. But yeah, even Gunnar was still putting up numbers, but they were dropping off compared to his first half. But his first half was so good that his second half didn't feel as painful as Adley's second half, or as, maybe Kowser's or a couple of other guys. But the fact of the matter is, across the board, other than Jordan Westburg, who again, for my money at this stage with this team, despite the fact he's only played 1 full year of Major League Baseball as a starter, as a regular, he's got the best plate approach of anybody on the team. He takes good at-bats. He works counts. He goes to the opposite field if it calls for it. If the pitch is out over the, outside part of the plate, he'll go the other way, and he can go the other way with power. He can knock it out of the park to right center. We've seen him do it many times. The rest of the team needs to watch Jordan Westburg take at bats. I'm telling you right now. And I think Westburg deserves to be hitting at the top of the lineup. Not necessarily leadoff, but second. I could see a left, right, left at the top of the lineup of Gunnar, Westburg, and then O'Hearn. And then maybe you bring in O'Neill as your cleanup guy, batting right. So you're going right, left, left, right, left, right. And then maybe you stick in Kowser, 5th, left. Mountcastle, 6th, right. Who's left? Mullins, Holiday, and who else? This is assuming Mountcastle and O'Hearn are playing DH and first base, one or the other. But yeah, I mean, Rutschman, of course. Rutschman. Kjerstad. Oh, you know what, Michael? Thanks for bringing up Kjerstad's name, because this is another reason why I think the Tyler O'Neill pickup makes sense. Had we re-signed Santander, or had we spent the money and somehow lured Teoscar Hernandez to the team, which were, again, undeniably the 2 big bats, right-handed or switch, that we need, that was available through free agency. If we were to have signed either of those guys, they would be expected to play every day. They would not be a part of any kind of a platoon. But with O'Neill, I think you can at least give Kjerstad more chances, okay? Where against righties, I'm not going to guess how often, but obviously against lefties, O'Neill plays every game. But against righties, which you see more righties than lefties, I still think O'Neill's going to play more than half the time. But I still think you can find a way to get Kjerstad 300 at-bats, And this is the time to do it. With a guy like Tyler O'Neill, you feel like you can make a valid move in saying, O'Neill, you're going to sit today. I'm going to go with Kjerstad out there in right field. So, yeah. And if Kjerstad's ever going to really make an impact and become a player for us, this is the year it happens. The build-up for the Kjerstad thing is over. This is the prove-it year. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to not get knocked over by a blow to the head, hopefully, again. But, yeah, this is the year for him. Gunnar should be a 100 RBI guy. Well, what do you guys think about Gunnar not leading off? Wouldn't you eventually prefer Gunnar to be batting like in the 2 or 3 hole, where he's coming up with at least maybe somebody on base when he comes up the first time every game? Because I would. That's what I want, a good on base guy with Gunnar coming up next. I think against lefties, I would start Westberg at leadoff. I would. And let Gunnar bat behind to see how that works. I wouldn't do it against righties yet, but I would do it against lefties. Oh, Nicholas, how can we have the same brain? How long have we been on? This has already been an 80-minute state of the Orioles off-season address stream. I'm trying to cover every base. Maybe I have. Have I been saying the same thing too many times? I don't know. I feel like I've been bouncing around to a lot of different thoughts here. But, yeah, when I see these memes and stuff, you guys, you got to be a little more rational, guys. Live look at the Orioles offseason. Hey, look, it's a giant dumpster with an Oriole logo on it. Guys, you realize until yesterday, the Diamondbacks had made less transactions than us. Then now they've made one, and now they're the toast of the town. I mean, the knee-jerk reactions. The knee-jerk reactions without taking everything into context. It's, I don't know. It's like a disease on social media. I don't know what to tell you guys. Don't be a part of this, okay? Please. Keep a level head. And again, I've said it 8 times tonight. I'll say it one more time. We wrap up this off season. We don't improve on the roster as it is right now. Go ahead and get the pitchforks and the torches out. But until then, you know, have some faith. It's the same as watching a ball game, okay? If we're watching the Orioles in the 7th inning and we're down a pair of runs, don't give up on the team. You might wind up watching them lose in a couple more innings. Then you can complain. But you don't get, you know, what are you doing complaining when you might not have a reason to when all is said and done? We might wind up winning, all right? Hang in there, people. We're about to wrap up the calendar year here. I want to wish everybody a happy New Year, and I hope you have some fun on New Year's Eve. Folks, hate to break it to you, but the first quarter of the 21st century is in the books. That went by quickly. Let's see if... hey, Pocket Watch. A member. Oh, do I have any free memberships to give away? I don't think I do. I have to wait till January. I have to wait like 3 more days. Just for context, the Mets were heavily criticized last offseason for not making any major moves. Thanks for that point, Dwayne. Yeah, guys, I mean, what is it? What is incorrect, Pocket Watch? Yeah, but I mean, the Mets, it is a bit of a different situation. I mean, you guys have like unlimited funds. So you have a way to make the fan base happy in a way that other teams and ownership simply don't have. Even the Yankees couldn't match what the Mets were willing to give up for Soto. And the Yankees tried really, really hard. Oh, it should say welcome back. Welcome back, right. Yeah, Pocket Watch, you've been a Magic member. Did you just renew it or something? Is that what happened? Yeah. I'll send a note to the YouTube team. Tell them, hey, man, make this a little more appealing for those faithful subscribers and members that want to support the channel. Let them know they welcome back. Either way, Pocket Watch, welcome back. All right, so yeah, we're coming up on 90 minutes. I think that pretty much, that's about as much Oriole talk as one can consume before either you start getting repetitious or just plain tired. So unless anybody has some more points they want to raise, again, if you said something earlier in the chat, if you're still here and you made a comment that you really wanted me to address or answer and I didn't, please type it in now, because yeah, for the first hour or so, I was just too zoned into my thoughts. I can't sit there and give you coherent sentences and make hopefully some valid points while monitoring chat at the same time. I don't have that capability. I don't know if Rubenstein is that wealthy. He's just not Angelos. He should be pretty darn wealthy. I think we all know what his like net worth is. It's I mean he's a billionaire several times over. Pretty sure. He's got the cash. But again, this just might not look. There was one ace-like pitcher. I don't consider Max Fried an ace. Okay, I think he's good. He's like a really good number 2 in a contender. He's an ace for a non-contender. Yankees brought him in like he's their number 2 behind Garrett Cole. I'm not giving a number 2 a contract like that. Sorry. He's got the 4th highest like contract as a starter in history or something. Like, I know that number is always getting broken because as time moves on, these contracts get higher and higher. But, you know, when you hear about a certain name breaking a certain record, you expect a name like a Juan Soto or a Shohei Ohtani. Or from pitching, I don't know, Paul Skeens in 5 years or whatever. You don't expect. Who the hell was I talking about? I've already forgot. I better go. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. If you didn't know already, I'm no longer doing the retro watch parties and /podcast format because nobody was showing up. Not enough really to do it continuing forward, considering all I was getting was copyright strikes from the original uploaders of these games. I don't get it. I'm not pulling these games from MLB.com. I can see them having a problem. But if you're just some random uploader and you upload a baseball game from 38 years ago, if you're able to upload it, why am I not able to watch it? I don't know. I don't know how this stuff works, but yeah, I didn't make. I wasn't worried about making a dime, but like I can't even, if I wanted to, make a dime doing that because of everything was demonetized for those things. Okay, so folks, in general, what I want you to do is to bring in the new year and just hang in there, okay? Hang in there. We're going to revisit this. I'll be back in January. I'm working behind the scenes here and upgrading things. And if you haven't been on the channel for my last stream, if you haven't noticed, I'm in HD now. So improvements are being made. I'm working on some layout stuff. In fact, I think I can show you a little peek. A friend of mine, there you go. A friend of mine I met with yesterday. He's only 23 years old. So he's young and a whippersnapper. He's teaching me how to build like a nice layout. This is nowhere near what it's going to look like, but he's just showing me how to basically take pieces like my video camera, a piece of the screen, or maybe just want the score in one little spot and maybe a sub count. You know, I'm learning how to, he's helping me learn how to do all that stuff. So it's going to look so much nicer. We should be running a little bit faster. So when you're watching live along with me, hopefully you're hearing me call it almost right in line with the game, you know. So yeah, a lot to be excited about in that regard. Of course, I'm nervous as hell because I've only offered a handful of content videos since the season ended, and none of them seem to really be attracting many people. I just hope once the season gets started back up that we get back to the trajectory that we're on with the growth of the channel. Because yeah, I'm putting all my eggs in here. You know what I'm saying? I don't got a lot of eggs, but they're all in. All right. Yeah, really? Is this how you feel? Folks, look, if you're ready to, jump off the ledge, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want you to. It's your choice. I'd love to prevent you, but yeah, maybe stay off X or whatever the hell. I'm still calling it Twitter. If I can type in Twitter and it takes me there, then it's Twitter, right? Twitter.com. Yeah, took me to X. All right, so it's still Twitter to me. Too much talent in Baltimore. The hat. Oh, yeah. One more thing. Before I go, the hat. The hat says hello, okay? Look, guys, I don't get it. It's so strange because I'm known as being a pessimistic cynic. And friends in my lifetime have always had to intervene and be like, BW, you need to look at the bright side. You need to calm down. And here I am now with the roles reversed talking to Orioles fan base. I'm telling you guys, don't freak out yet, okay? Not yet. Again, I want to make that abundantly clear. I'm not saying you have no reason to freak out eventually. Just don't freak out yet. Corbin Burnes was added through trade February last year. Remember that, all right? That's all I got. Have a great new year. Come on back, check in, check the community page, and get in on the Discord if you can. I don't know if anybody can... You know what? Hey, by the way, has the microphone been sounding okay this whole time, guys? It's the last thing I'll ask, I promise. It's the last thing I'm going to ask. Microphone quality been sounding okay tonight? You guys are satisfied? How about my ugly mug in the thumbnail? How bad was the thumbnail? Be honest. Did it sicken people? So, yeah, there's the Discord link, folks. Again, if you want to talk more Orioles baseball, you can always do it in here. And eventually, when things are up and running, you can always talk to me on live on stream, okay? I want your voice to be heard. I don't want my opinion to be the only one out there, okay? And I know you guys got some in chat, but if you really want to get it out there and have it back and forth, think about getting in on a call, all right? Pocket Watch is coming in. Pocket Watch, do you want to do a test hello as you come in? Or does anybody else want to attempt to do a quick talk before I sign off, just to test it out, see if it sounds okay? It actually would help me out, guys, because sometimes using the Discord makes the microphone quality change, and change for the worse. So I've already opened it up. I don't know if I'm still sounding the same. Pocket Watch, once you're in, if you know how Discord is laid out, it's this Talk to BW voice channel right here that I've just opened. Now that I've opened it, test. Do I still sound like I've always sounded? Let me actually just hear for myself. Do I still sound like I've always sounded? Okay, that sounds okay. Does anybody want to try and talk to me? I really would, because this is so weird where I just sit for 90 straight minutes giving you my opinions and thoughts. In real life, I like to have a banter. I want to hear your opinions and thoughts. I want to look at some things through a new lens. I don't like to rely solely on my own, but I also don't just conform to the herd mentality, which right now is that the Orioles have completely screwed the pooch. You do what, Pocket Watch? You want to come on and say hello? Are you in the Discord now? Do you see where to do it? I'll get you on right now. 1 minute or less. All right. Gives me time to grab a lucky. How many people are still here? What was the peak? There's still 18 people here. Okay, of the 18 people here, let me just ask this, because I really want to know. Does anybody, after what I've explained or tried to explain or try to rationalize, do you feel a little bit better about where things stand and how things aren't necessarily doomed? Not yet, anyway. Like, that's because that really was the intent of tonight's. Okay, Trey Redding, is that you, Pocket Watch? Do you see this thing right here? If you're looking at the screen. I'm waving hello back. There you are. Hey, welcome in, Pocket Watch. You're on the air, buddy. Oh, your microphone is muted. Okay, now you're unmuted. I hear you, but you got to speak up.
Okay, sorry. There's a lot of noise around me.
Yeah, just be sure to mute me on the YouTube side. Just listen to me talking to you on this side. Yeah, I hear you fine, loud and clear.
All right, YouTube should be muted, but
It's great to hear your voice, Pocket Watch.
yeah, you sound great on this end too. So the mic is working good.
That's good to hear. Unfortunately, it's hit or miss with Discord. Sometimes it just craps out. But listen, man, I'm glad to have you on. The floor is yours. Let me know some of your concerns and what have you about where we stand with the team right now. I'm getting a lot of feedback now, by the way.
Okay. I think I have issues on my end to resolve, so we probably need to do this later, if that's all right.
Well, once you begin talking, it's fine. Like, just,
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to be concerned about anything until I know the owner's response or the team's response. Because it's at that point that you worry, or that you begin to worry and not just worry, maybe panic, or not worry at all because you could end up in a better place.
when you say response, do you mean response to not signing Burnes?
Yes. Like,
So would you agree then that, let's say we can't just, because I feel like with the Yankees, when they lost out on Soto, like they panicked and they signed Max Fried like the next day, and they were like, we'll give you whatever it takes. We just got to give the fan base some red meat and make them happy because we just lost Soto. You know what I'm saying?
right. Look, at this time of year, it's definitely not a timing thing. It's not a next day thing.
But there is something we can do the next day. And that's why I'm talking about, you know, extending one of our young players with a contract that says we're going to keep you here for X amount of years. Like, wouldn't that be a great way for ownership to do something where we're not irrationally picking up a player that maybe isn't the best fit just to make the fans happy, and instead just use some money to show that we're investing and that we're serious as ownership, you know, right?
This is just my opinion, and it's if they were going to do that anyway, like they were 99% of the way there, or maybe they'd already decided it, but their timing was going to be 2 weeks from now, or pick some arbitrary date.
Mm-hmm.
But then this changes things, and if they were going to do it anyway, it's like sure, move it up. But if they hadn't decided to already do it, or weren't like right at the decision to already do it, then it doesn't matter how much we panic now, so long as it's addressed, basically before the season starts, or even into this. Well, I'm not going to say into the season, because if it gets into the season, I'm not going to be a rational individual. If it's like, if nothing is done. But like, they need time. You got to give them time and fairness.
Well, I think I mean, you're talking about the Oriole fan base, not me personally, right? Because I feel like I've been very diplomatic and allowing for that time to take place for the moves to get made that need to get made. But the truth of the matter is that names are coming off the board, and the more names that come off the board, the more you're going to have to assume that the guy you want to trade for or whatever, that the other team is, their price tag is going to go up a little bit because they have that leverage. They know that you're running out of options. You know what I'm saying? So that's the price we're going to have to pay if we pull off a trade.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's something. I mean, no, you're totally right there. That's the thing management you have to expect they're on top of and realize, and are playing that game. But that's something that we should probably be aware of so much. But again, it's like after they've done it, like after we know that whatever their response is going to be, after we know they've made it, it's like it's only then when we really evaluate.
Yeah.
If you're level-headed, you're good. It's like, that's where we are. And again, we're still in the Christmas holiday.
Yeah, well, that's what the point of this podcast was once that Burnes news came out and I started seeing the fans' reaction, I felt like it was necessary to have a bit of a intervention, and try and again, not just put rose-colored glasses on the situation. I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to give you guys some kind of a pipe dream, okay? I'm a realistic guy. But again, there's still moves that can be made, and wouldn't you? I keep trying to say, wouldn't you agree? It's such a terrible way of phrasing. I got to stop doing it. But when I make the point, Pocket Watch, of the fact that the Orioles, as an organization, that it makes more sense to pursue big starting pitching talent that is just very, very expensive to pursue that through free agency where they're already in contracts that aren't super crazy, Like Castillo for 3 to 4 years that's doable, I don't want to commit 8 years. I don't want to commit $250 million to Corbin Burnes if he doesn't want to be here,
Right. Yeah, and you know what? And I hate to even say it, but if it looks like it's a money thing at any point, I hate to say we might be back where we were with a reluctance to spend.
That's why I'm saying if the fan base, if that's what we're feeling, then the one thing that the ownership can do immediately is to lock up one of our younger players. Just make that move. Look, it makes sense to do it anyway eventually, but if you do it now, you can maybe I mean, the fans are ready to throw this team away right now. It's ugly out there for a lot of guys, for a lot of fans.
Okay, exactly what time did this happen? It was late yesterday evening or into the morning.
Right.
What was the tweet?
It was like 1 a.m.
We have to. Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I didn't think we'd even hit the 24-hour mark.
Right.
So I have to think that the response. I mean, you combine it with, and it was on a. Not only was it in the holidays, but it was at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning at 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably right before right before New Year's.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's in the office then? And I know we all have phones and
Yeah.
all of that, but it's like, there still is time for an immediate response. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And it may be days from now, but that's what, maybe a week from now. But it's way too early to panic.
Definitely.
That said, there was the live stream, on in the middle of the night last night, or the middle of the night in the States last night. And you know what? When it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and you want to panic about a baseball player leaving or not re-signing or what have you,
Yeah.
That's the time to panic. But once you get to sleep on it, and the sleeping on it's the key, you kind of start to be more reasonable. And so my only thing, I think some of the panic still may be happening because it may have been a delayed panic, and some people are still in the window where it's like they need to just let it out. Because you got to remember the way things ended last season. Last season was awesome.
Can I interject for 1 second? What are your feelings of the signings that we have made so far? Because a lot of the people that are complaining about not signing Burnes are also saying that Tyler O'Neill was a rubbish signing, that Sugano is a washed pitcher with nothing to contribute. Like, do you feel that way about signings like those?
I'll be the first to admit I don't stay up with baseball in the off season
Uh-huh.
as much as I will during the season. I catch up during spring training.
Yeah.
It's usually the way I try to do it.
It's probably a healthy approach. Give yourself some time off. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm also a college football fanatic. Well, I hate to say fanatic, but I take it probably too seriously. We'll just leave it at that.
No problem.
And so you got to balance these things. That's actually why I got back into baseball. I'm like, I need something in the summer where I'm not looking at tidbits when there's not even practice going on. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about worthless info, but not, well, yeah, pretty much just useless info.
Yeah.
But, getting back to the signings, again, it all depends where we end up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
But I mean, we're looking at Tyler O'Neill as pretty much the Santander replacement. I mean, just that alone. You love Tony as one of the boys. We love his personality. We're gonna miss him, and he gave us his most special year, and now he's walking. But can you kind of see how O'Neill as a replacement isn't the worst thing when you consider what Santander is probably going to be asking for a contract versus a guy like O'Neill, and that Tony, God love him, it's just really hard to imagine that he's ever going to improve beyond what he did last year. It seems much more realistic to think that he's going to regress back to a guy hitting you around 33, 35 home runs, right? And that's Tyler O'Neill can give you 30 home runs, and with a better on base, it's not bad.
Right. I was actually just thinking to make the point that, when we were growing up, we grew up before Moneyball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure we're both in that age bracket.
I know. I grew up. I remember Billy Bean and Moneyball. I watched it all happen. I remember it. Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm talking about we were fans right at least some before it. And when that happened, it changed the game. And you know what? I never caught up. Like, I never got into the analytics at all.
Uh-huh.
At least on the level to really understand it. Other than the fact that the ones that do, I'm like, because when you do it right, it clearly works. And so they usually, even when the trades I don't understand, they're usually seeing something there that I don't see. And also not understanding, you know what? It makes it easier for me to just put faith in it.
Well, I think one of the things that Elias looks for in terms of position players offensively are guys that have a reputation for when they make contact, they hit the ball extremely hard. Like their average exit velo is quite high, and that both O'Neill and Gary Sanchez fit that mold. Like when they make contact, the ball goes far. You know what I mean? And we've got a lot of guys like that in our team, and that's great. Even if the ball doesn't leave the yard, you're thinking of doubles, you're thinking of big slugging type hits, and I think O'Neill has got that in him. We're bringing in the wall a little bit for him. I don't even think we needed to. I would have personally kept the wall the way it was. I liked that little quirk, and the fact that we were still hitting plenty of home runs with it. But yeah, sorry. I was kind of interrupting you, but finish your thought there, Pocket Watch. I'm sorry.
No, you were fine. As much as I can remember anything that resembled a thought that I was saying, but I think I was. Wait, I think it was still. Did I finish the point on the timing? Because it's like, it's the Friday, it's Saturday morning first thing combined with, we're still less than 24 hours combined with we're at the New Year's timing.
Yeah.
So it's just that you can't, my goodness, maybe, I don't know there's the setup, but it's like if it takes them a week to get back together, it just may be the reality. Not to mention everybody they're talking to is going to be on it, so, which I get there's motivation there, but it just may not be as quick as we would like.
Yeah, and again, I mean, how stoked were you when the news broke in February last year that we traded for Corbin Burnes? How much rumor did you hear about that even being a possibility before it happened? There was none. We just pulled it off. So, yeah, I'm not counting out Elias on being able to wield a trade. And again, we've got 3 names: Castillo, Cease, and now Pablo Lopez. We can rank them in order of preference, but if only one of them we can manage to trade with, as long as we get one of those 3 guys, I think we can compete with that. And again, if we're looking for a Burnes type guy, well, let's just try next winter to see if the next Burnes type guy emerges out of the pack and we pursue him, because Burnes clearly did not want to be on the East Coast or in a city like Baltimore. He wanted to be out west. And, when you're making that kind of money and you got that kind of ability to really choose your own destiny or whatever, then if I'm in his shoes, I probably would have done the same thing. I mean, personally, if I had the honor of being a professional baseball player and being so good to hit the free agent market and have my choice of where to go, my number one place would always be the team that I love, and that's the team I want to play for. I want to play for the Orioles. I'll play for the Orioles, and I'll take a pay cut to do it. That's just me. But other people are like, I want to play here because that's where I live, or I want to play here because I like the limelight of L.A. or New York, Burnes it just wasn't ever going to happen for us, guys. We were never going to get him. And if you look at some of the tweets about how we were trying to offer him a deal, other teams were offering, Toronto offered more money, and he said no,
Right. No, that's totally correct. Because if you don't want to live somewhere and you have other options,
yeah.
where you do want to live, I mean, we're all going to make the same choice.
And conversely, as ownership, do you want to give somebody $250 million that, if other than the money, really doesn't want to be there? It's almost like finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you want to keep. They kind of want to split up, but then you're like, well, I'll just keep buying you stuff. Will you stick around if I keep throwing money at you? And what kind of relationship is that? It's not a healthy one. Exactly. It's so I'm again with the Burnes thing. I knew with the number of years that were going to be involved. Now, obviously, with Arizona, if we had a chance to do a 6-year deal with a 2-year option out, I think that would have been great. But the fact of the matter is, Arizona was able to pull that because they were in Arizona and we're not. It sucks, but that's the reality, And we haven't even got into the whole tax thing. About the giant tax break for Arizona income versus other places. So that's millions of dollars you're talking about.
I hadn't even considered that angle, but yeah, no, that's real money.
Yeah.
But hey, we have a storm going through here.
All right.
The winds are picking up. We had all the warnings and sirens and whatnot. And the internet's starting to blink a little bit, so I probably need to drop off.
No problem. I was happy to have you on, Pocket Watch, and thanks for finding my channel and being around so much, supporting, being a Magic member, all that stuff, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, right on.
Let's do this again, okay?
Keep a level head. We're good.
Yeah,
For sure.
good. I hope that this was a productive thing tonight. For at least, if I just get one Oriole fan to feel a little bit more calm, a little less panicked, then I feel like these last couple of hours. Thank you again, Pocket Watch. I feel like these last couple of hours were absolutely worth it. But either way, I wanted to go ahead and just put my 2 cents out there, with the number one point being this offseason isn't over yet. So let's reserve judgment until it is. All right? It's just poor form, fans. Look, when the time is right, yes, curse your ownership. When the time is right, yes, curse your GM. When the time is right, yes, curse your manager. Wherever the fault lies for a given situation with this team, when the time comes, you do it. But you got to know when the time comes, all right? And it's not yet, all right? So hang in there. Quick question, BW, going to watch the Commanders Sunday night. What time? Oh, it's Sunday night, so it will be like Monday. Yeah, I'll probably be watching, Michael, because it'll be in the morning here. I won't have to be up like at 3 in the morning. It'll be like 8 in the morning. So yeah, Michael, I'll be watching. Yeah, perfect. 8 a.m. for me. I'll be having breakfast, watching the Commanders play the Falcons. We are a good team right now, even without adding anyone, but we still will probably add someone. So yeah, no need to panic. Yeah, yeah. Again, folks, we've got such a great core. It's more about just getting the best out of the players we have and hopefully locking up some of the more important ones than it is to have re-signed Corbin Burnes. And again, that is not the status quo response you're going to find across the internet. You're going to find, like, I've seen some of these talking head baseball content creators on YouTube who've already put out their videos about Corbin Burnes with titles like, "A sad day for the Orioles as Burnes signs for the Diamondbacks." It's not a sad day. It's not. Okay? If we found a way to sign him and it made sense, then yeah, that would have been great. All problems are solved in one swift move. Didn't work out that way. All right? It's time to regroup. If you want to talk about something on social media, start suggesting some trades, and do some work. Start proposing some potential trades and just post them in the Orioles tweets and stuff. Let them know we're looking to do something, but don't just complain. Offer something constructive, okay? All right, that's about all I got. It just means Gunnar and Adley are getting even more money, LOL. Well, see, like with Adley, it's weird because he has fallen off so hard in the second half last year. It's that weird thing where, like, you worry about locking him up because, like, is he going to get his mojo back? Because if he didn't, that could be a horrific signing. But at the same time, if you wait to get his mojo all the way back, well, then whatever that contract you're talking about is going to get up a little bit bigger, isn't it? You want to find that. This is what I want to see. I want to see Adley have a really good spring where, like, 15 games into spring training, he's had like 35, 40 at-bats, and he's hitting 300 plus, and he's looking locked in, and you just feel like that's going to carry over. Like, as soon as you see that, before he starts putting up stats that matter in the regular season, that's the moment you strike and give Adley a contract. But you got to wait and see that he's found his mojo again. Because right now, the way things concluded, you just can't do it yet. All right, we're right on the 2-hour mark. So let's wrap things up. 100% says Rob, so perfect timing for me. If I can persuade somebody to respond with a 100%, that's the best time to log off before I put my foot in my mouth. You're welcome, Rob, and everybody else. Happy holidays to you. Once again, folks, I am doing this during the off season. I'm trying to give you content, but this is still a channel that is relatively new and working bare bones. So if you're feeling in the holiday mood, you can always check the description and perhaps go to Ko-Fi, which is a place where you can give me a cup of coffee for like $5 or something, a little small donation. Help this channel out. Help me get through the winter months. That would be great. I'm sorry that I have to suggest it, but sometimes you just got to suggest it. All right. Other than that, this has been the Bird Watcher. Have a great New Year's. We're going to talk again not too long into January, and hopefully when we talk again, we'll have something a little more positive to focus on. Okay? That's going to do it for me, guys. The hat says hello. Hang in there. Orioles magic is alive and well. Hang the hell in there. Have a good one. Good night.